Tel Aviv, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has arrived. We believe he's about to deliver a statement. Of course, there is news of a soldier, a female soldier, has been freed after being held in captivity in Gaza by Hamas. Netanyahu himself is under intense pressure. There's been protests around Israel to bring the prisoners home. Big protest outside City Hall, and many believe the war in Gaza should stop so the prisoners can be brought back. But they can't see how it happens while the offensive goes on. He's speaking now, so let's listen to him.
Would enable us to move beyond the barbaric horrors of the past towards a better and brilliant future. Many believe that we could go about our comfortable lives and that evil will simply pass us by. It will not. The horrors that Hamas perpetrated on October 7th remind us that we will not realize the promise of a better future unless we, the civilized world, are willing to fight the barbarians. Because the barbarians are willing to fight us. And their goal is clear: shatter that promising future, destroy all that we cherish, and usher in a world of fear and darkness. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a turning point for leaders and nations. It is time for all of us to decide if we are willing to fight for a future of hope and promise, or surrender to tyranny and terror. Now rest assured, Israel will fight. Since October 7th, Israel has been at war. Israel did not start this war. Israel did not want this war. But Israel will win this war. Hamas launched this war by perpetrating the worst savagery our people have seen since the Holocaust. Hamas murdered children in front of their parents, murdered parents in front of their children. They burnt people alive. They raped women. They beheaded men. They tortured Holocaust survivors. They kidnapped babies. They committed the most horrific crimes imaginable. And they're part of the axis of evil that Iran has formed, an axis of terror that works by arming, training, and financing Hamas in Gaza, Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, and other terror proxies throughout the Middle East and beyond the Middle East. In fighting Hamas and the Iranian axis of terror, Israel is fighting the enemies of civilization itself. Victory over these enemies begins with moral clarity. And wrong. It means making a moral distinction between the deliberate murder of the innocent and the unintentional casualties that accompany every legitimate war, even the most just war. It means holding Hamas responsible for the double war crime it commits every day by deliberately targeting Israeli civilians while deliberately using Palestinian civilians as human shields. It means making clear that the use of human shields is not only an immoral tactic of terror, but also an ineffective one. Because as long as Hamas's use of Palestinian human shields result in the international community blaming Israel, Hamas will continue to use it as a tool of terror, and so will others. Hamas will continue to use the basements in Gaza's hospitals as the command posts of its vast terror tunnel network. It will continue to use mosques as fortified military positions and weapon depots. It will continue to steal fuel and humanitarian assistance from UN facilities. While Israel is doing everything to get Palestinians, civilians, out of harm's way, Hamas is doing everything to keep Palestinian civilians in harm's way. Israel urges Palestinian civilians to leave the areas of armed conflict, while Hamas prevents those civilians from leaving those areas at gunpoint. Hamas is also preventing foreign nationals from leaving Gaza altogether. And most despicably, Hamas is holding over 200 Israeli hostages, including 33 children, holding them, terrorizing them, keeping them as hostages. Every civilized nation should stand with Israel in demanding that these hostages be freed immediately and freed unconditionally. I want to make clear Israel's position regarding a ceasefire. Just as the United States would not agree to a ceasefire after the bombing of Pearl Harbor or after the terrorist attack of 9/11, Israel will not agree to a cessation of hostilities with Hamas after the horrific attacks of October 7th. Calls for a ceasefire are calls for Israel to surrender to Hamas, to surrender to terrorism, to surrender to barbarism. That will not happen. Ladies and gentlemen, the Bible says that there is a time for peace and a time for war. This is a time for war for our common future. Today, we draw a line between the forces of civilization and the forces of barbarism. It is a time for everyone to decide where they stand. Israel will stand against the forces of barbarism until victory. I hope and pray that civilized nations everywhere will back this fight, because Israel's fight is your fight. Because if Hamas and Iran's axis of evil win, you will be their next target. That's why Israel's victory will be your victory. But make no mistake, regardless of who stands with Israel, Israel will fight until this battle is won, and Israel will prevail. May God bless Israel, and may God bless all those who stand with Israel.
Okay, thank you for clicking on our intro for tonight right there. Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, giving a statement there, tying his country to the United States, explicitly within that statement by declaring that just because there was no ceasefire after Pearl Harbor, because there was no ceasefire after 9/11, why should Israel expect a ceasefire after the attack they suffered on October the 7th? That was the direct tie to the United States in that statement. And again, what we do here on this show is we stay as close as possible to the middle. And some people were saying you talk a lot about what's going on in Palestine. You don't show much from the Israeli perspective. There was 6 minutes of the Israeli Prime Minister uninterrupted. And as with everything, you listen to what is said and you decide for yourselves, does this impact me personally? Because chances are at some point, if it hasn't already within the not too distant future, we will all feel the direct impacts of what happens in that small nation of Israel and in that even smaller territory of Gaza. So thank you for clicking on. Chris will be joining us at 9:00, and after Chris and I are done, I'm going to stay on for just a little bit longer because I'm going to roll through what's coming up, and I'm not going to be able to go into the chat. Apologies to everyone that's in there now. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for watching, no matter what platform you're watching on. It's greatly appreciated. And if you'd like to join the chat, I think you have to come to the YouTube platform and join the chat. I think maybe you can do it from Twitch as well. I'm not sure, but I know you can't from Facebook, and I do thank you, Facebook viewers. And I'm also asking everybody to share the channel if you would, specifically episodes on Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays when Chris is on with us, because you get a lot of information that you aren't going to get anywhere else. And now sometimes you get the information from us ahead of time, and then you get it from somewhere else. But very seldom do we talk about things and they're not in any way, shape, or form worthy of being listened to. All right, when Chris is on, That's not to say we don't have fun on this channel. We do at times. We're going to try to do that tomorrow. Tomorrow is Halloween, and you just don't know what's going to happen, especially on Halloween. And we need some fun, so we might try to do something tomorrow, fun-wise. But in the meantime, got a lot of stuff to talk about, and let's get with it here. Okay, I'm trying to look for my starting point, and here we go. Last night, if you watched last night's episode, we showed a few times the mob in Russia, the pro-Palestinian mob. Well, the Business Insider is just calling it a mob, but it was a pro-Palestinian mob, as you saw if you watched the video, that stormed a Russian airport hunting for Jews, got its marching orders from Telegram. Then the channel lost control. So, again, the importance of social media in all of this is, this is going to be a totally new layer, if you would, a totally new level, a totally new addition to how war is conducted. Because, again, we started out with the Netanyahu interview. If you're just joining us, thank you. And if you've been with us, thank you. We started out with the Netanyahu interview, and some will think, well, that's all propaganda. My stance on all of this is everything that happens in the Middle East is just retribution for something that has already happened in the Middle East. It's just a continuance of retributions, and they will continue until I said in one of last week's episodes with Chris, this is like, instead of an eye for an eye, this is like 2 eyes for every eye, and it just makes the world go blinder. It just makes the world go blind that much faster. So that's my stance on that. That puts me in the middle, if you will. Okay, I'm trying to and we try to be objective with both sides. But you saw the pro-Palestinian mob, as they're called here in this, and again, they were hunting for an Israeli flight that had landed, which is illuminating. Let me just put it that way. Now, there's a summit going on in China, a military summit. China and Russia. This comes from the Washington Post. China and Russia cast the U.S. as an agent of global instability at the Chinese Military Forum. That came in 11 hours ago. I got a lot of headlines to get through tonight, and we're going to get through them all before we get Chris up here. Russia warns China of a catastrophic nuclear escalation threat. This comes in from Newsweek 9 hours ago. Again, from Beijing, from the forum. Russia's warned of the possibility of a clash between nuclear powers. Addressing the security forum in China, Russia's defense minister, Shoigu, said U.S. and NATO continue to, quote, try to undermine Russian security and deprive us of the will to resist, according to Russian state news agency TASS. And Shoigu accused the West of trying to expand the war started by Vladimir Putin in Ukraine, trying to expand it to the Asian Pacific, as he claimed that NATO countries are increasing their military presence in that region under the cover of an ostentatious desire for dialogue, quote unquote. Also from Russia, the Kremlin breaks its silence on anti-Semitic riots in southern Russia. A lot of Muslims living in the in southern Russia, Kyrgyzstan, Turkmenistan. These are all independent countries now. They were part of the Soviet Union, but they were an extension of the Ottoman Empire of Turkey at one time. So there's an incredible Muslim influence all the way into what Russia claims as Russian territory, even though they were independent states or countries at one time. And Russia's got a large amount of Muslims, again, especially in that southern region. Now, we've heard of we've heard about Hamas in Moscow, and we're going to talk about China real quick since that was brought up. Congressman from Florida has sounded the alarm after 17 Chinese nationals are arrested in his district. We talked about this. I brought this up probably, I don't know, a month and a half ago, that there were small numbers of Chinese that were being intercepted trying to get into the country. And who's financing them coming here? And they are all of military age, all single, mostly male. So, and this is in Florida. Okay, this isn't the southern border. This came in 21 hours ago from the Western Journal. Also, along the lines of back to the Eastern European theater, German defense minister's alarming warning. He sees a looming threat of war in Europe. And this comes in from Financial World. So a lot of different people are starting to pay attention and starting to publish information. That should make almost all of us sit up a little bit and take notice, in my opinion. North Korea orders citizens to build a border defenses, and they want them to use wood with long nails. Very primitive, but can be very effective, as the United States learned at times in North Korea. I'm sorry, in North Vietnam. North Korea has been accused of supplying weapons and technology to Hamas. Speaking of North Korea, so I think we're starting to see the ties that we've talked about before with BRICS. Brazil, B for Brazil, R for Russia, I for Iran and India, C for China, and S for South Africa. North Korea is obviously in that coalition, if you will. Netanyahu said there's a coalition of the civilized and the coalition of the barbaric. You always want to demonize your opposition as much as possible. The guy from North Korea is scary, if you will, to me, concerning. Let's just say that, because I don't think the guy has a really clear understanding of a lot of the rest of the world, and the timing of him trying to insert himself. Maybe he really does, but it's dangerous nonetheless. So here we've got this came in from CNN, obviously, as you see on the screen. Here we've got North Korea aiding Hamas allegedly. We've got Iran aiding Hamas allegedly. We've got Russia aiding Iran allegedly. We've got Russia and China meeting in China right now at a military conference. These are all, in my opinion, incredibly important things to think about. Speaking of Israel, Israel strikes Syria and Lebanon following rocket attacks. This came in from Al Jazeera, and I'm looking for the time it came in, 18 hours ago. So not only is Israel in Gaza, Israel's also striking in Lebanon, where Hezbollah is, and in striking in Syria, where Iranian proxies are. So it is slowly spreading, and it would be nice if it were contained at some point, but the fire is burning and the fire is spreading. This comes in from CBS News 20 hours ago. For Palestinian and Israeli Americans, the unimaginable is now a reality. Both trying to, both assimilating into America, and the divisions of their roots are now coming to roost here in the country, basically, is what CBS is telling us. Let me get this. There we go. Hold on. I almost lost this. Oh, no, I don't want this. No, I don't want that. No, I don't want that. Here we go. Let's see if we can put it back in here. My apologies, I'm producing as well. And we go there. Okay, here we go. This is what I was looking for. This came in from Fox News. Israeli targets Hamas terror tunnels in the Gaza. Let me see if I can back this back up just a skosh, if I can. And again, they're using AI to model what they believe tunnel systems look like, underground tunnels, as you can see here. And as you heard Benjamin Netanyahu claim, tunnels and basements of mosques and hospitals being used as Hamas headquarters and possibly even weapons storage facilities. Again, is that what's really happening, or is Israel targeting the hospitals and mosques just like any other building because there's a greater mission? That's the two sides of that. The U.S. says its last planned Israeli charter flight is going to leave Tuesday, that is tomorrow. This came in from the Jerusalem Post just about 3 hours ago, also from Reuters. This is an indicator. This is one of those things that we watch for, that things might be kicking off on a much bigger scale, or at the minimum, escalation is coming in some way, shape, or form. Canadian Special Force members are on the ground in Israel. Their Department of Defense confirmed the Canadian Special Force members are in Israel, helping the embassy there with contingency planning, as are United States troops, as we've heard in reports here. China's foreign minister warns that Biden and Xi meeting in San Francisco wouldn't be smooth sailing. As of right now, there is going to be a meeting between President Joe Biden and President Xi of China. It will be in San Francisco as of right now, but I don't. I know what the president's trying to do. He's trying to do diplomacy. He's trying to, keep things from blowing up, and I wish him success. But again, like the remark said, I hit the wrong button. Sorry. Where am I at? Crap. Hang on. As the Chinese said, I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be kind of bumpy. We look for signals. We look for little indicators. Sometimes the indicators aren't so little. me get this where we can see it. It came in 3 hours ago. Joe Biden sends war powers notification to conflict or to Congress. Are we headed into a big conflict? My personal opinion, I'm not, and I don't tell you what to think or how to think. We give you things to think about. My opinion is this is one of those indicators that we are on our way to a big conflict. The president informing Congress that they don't have to declare war yet. He intends to use the War Powers Act for everything that is about to come in the way of activity by United States military. If you've been watching since the start, thank you very much, obviously. But if you have been, you saw Benjamin Netanyahu's 6+ minutes of an address to the world. You heard him talk about there will be no ceasefire. You heard him talk about a ceasefire would be a surrender to Hamas, as Hamas would probably not honor it. Hillary Clinton chimed in, again from the Jerusalem Post. People who call for a ceasefire do not understand Hamas. So she's echoing the United States statement. For those that aren't aware, over the weekend, United Nations were trying to draft a resolution for this, including a humanitarian ceasefire. United States kept objecting to the recommendations because they didn't include a condemnation of Hamas as a terrorist organization. Hamas is recognized in the UN and around the world as the legitimate elected government of Gaza. So it's an interesting situation. Couple of more quick political stories here, and we will get Chris up here. This comes from the Associated Press. Pence's early exit from the presidential campaign offers a reminder of Trump's grip on the GOP, the Republican Party. And it does. Everything that Trump is facing as far as legal circumstances, they are not doing much of anything to shrink his base, if you will. Where does Mike Pence go from here is what the Week in UK asks after Pence's withdrawal. And in my opinion, Mike will probably end up being the president of some college somewhere. He is not going to be the next president of the United States, at least not for now. Ron DeSantis is under pressure over his neo-Nazi response or lack thereof. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is continuing to receive criticism for his failure to fully Nazi demonstrations that have taken place in the state. DeSantis, who's running for president, recently came under fire from State Representative Randy Fine, the only Jewish Republican in Florida legislature, for the governor's muted responses to Fine being, quote, jumped, unquote, by a neo-Nazi in Florida, and the white supremacist demonstrations that have taken place in Orlando and Orange County and other locations. So, again, the issues from there will be the issues here. And with that being said, Chris, good evening.
Hey, Barry, how are you?
All right, man. How are you?
Hanging in there. It's another day.
Just another day. I timed that pretty well. We are at 9 o'clock. So thank you for joining. Did you see Netanyahu's statement?
I did not. I missed it. So
He tied Israel and the U.S. By saying that There will be no ceasefire. A ceasefire would be a victory for Hamas. He said that um, no one called for a ceasefire after 9/11, or no one called for a ceasefire after Pearl Harbor, when the United States were attacked those two times. Why should anyone call for a ceasefire after Hamas's attack October 7th? So he tied us together specifically, and we're the only nation he addressed by name in the 6 minute speech.
All right, so I think we even discussed this the last time. That the United States is the only one that's really going to be backing Israel currently. I mean, I and I really can't see anyone else putting themselves in the position to back Israel, considering the backlash that's happening all over the world right now. A lot of Jewish people, Israeli citizens, are actually getting injured all over the world.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for countries to put themselves in that predicament. So, those Israeli citizens in those countries can get injured by other Muslims from that country. It's just a big powder keg that doesn't need to be. So sometimes it's best that you just remove yourself from that situation. All right. And countries won't support Israel at all. They'll pretty much remain neutral. They're not going to take a stance at all.
And we've been saying that for a few weeks now. It's going to be us and Israel back to back.
Right. Exactly. And like I said, no one else is going to come to help Israel at all. Okay.
And we might as well throw out, if something happens here, no one's coming to help us either.
Right. Exactly. So we're all by ourselves. That's it.
Well, we're in good company anyway.
Right.
I'd rather be here with us than there with them.
Yeah. So it's the sad thing about it is with Netanyahu constantly bombarding Gaza. You saw that video that I sent to you that was in Russia with the Muslims.
Yeah, I did an episode last night and played it 3 times during the episode.
Right. And
it wasn't a peaceful demonstration.
No, no, it wasn't. And you're going to start seeing a lot more of that if the Gaza attacks continue. All right, it's just gonna make it 10 times worse. And
going to require security around every Israeli commercial airliner.
Right. But not only that, we discussed that about the Israeli embassies and then Israeli citizens abroad. They're in danger. They're in real danger now.
And businesses.
Yeah, and anything related Jewish or to Israel, they're going to get hit. Okay.
And then we fire the first shot, whenever that may be. And we, as the Christian nation in the world, even though that's not how we are demographically, that's how we are identified. Then it expands to not only all Jews, but to all Christians.
Right. And really, this is a Jewish or Israeli or Zionist, we'll call it a Zionist Muslim fight. Okay. Mm-hmm. Pretty much Christians don't have a foot in this at all.
But we'll put our foot in it.
Yeah, and then you just make the situation worse. You see, because like, what makes you think that you have some right to dictate, or what goes on? You see, and the sad thing about it is that Muslims and Jews really never had that problem, okay, until the Zionists moved in to Palestine. Jews and Muslims kind of lived together, all right? And I don't know if you know about Iran, but Iran has a sizable Jewish community, and they don't
And
have
at one time, a fairly sizable Christian community.
right, and everyone lived together. You see, but it was until the Zionists moved in to Palestine, this is when the problems started to occur.
All right. I spoke in a couple of episodes just briefly about the differences between being Israeli, being Zionist, and being Jewish. And being
Uh-huh.
Jewish is a religion or a spiritual way of life dictated by the Torah. Being Israeli means you live in, were born in, or are from Israel. Being Zionist
Right.
means you are the equivalent of a nationalist, a national extremist.
Right. It's a political ideology that deals with nationalism.
Right.
That's what it really is. That's what it really is. All right.
To the and
And
nationalism on the not only should Jews land, but Jews should have all of Israel as their homeland.
right,
Is
exactly. And part of that ideology, once again, is to get rid of the Arab or Palestinian population and have a completely Jewish state.
okay. Before we get into the story that we want to hear from you tonight, I've had a few emails that have come in asking about why doesn't Egypt, since Israel gave part of the Sinai to Egypt in a peace deal, why doesn't Egypt give some of the Sinai to the Palestinians? Any thoughts on that?
I honestly, you caused me a speculator, and I, that
Is
that
that a two-state option that take? But my response was, it's their homeland, in their eyes, in their heart, in their souls. Palestine is their homeland.
right,
It's not
it
Israel, it's
is.
Palestine.
So
I mean, am I missing something?
who's going to help fund it?
We lost
Who's going to
your
fund it?
signal there for a second. We lost your signal there for a second. All we heard is
Can
who's
you hear
going
me
to
now?
fund it. Yeah, who's going to fund it?
Yeah. So who's going to fund it? And
We would. I'm
it's in
sure
the
the
it's in,
United States would be who would fund it.
okay. But once again, is it going to be Hamas who's going to run it, or is it going to be someone like Fatah? And you have to keep in mind the ideologies of the two, because if one is going to be um, one for Islamic resistance, as opposed to someone that's going to be um, a secular government that doesn't want violence and is going to preach diplomacy, then it's going to be, you know, who's it going to be? You know, here comes the elections, right? It's going to be the same thing,
Yeah,
right?
I know. It just moves the problem to another area.
It just moves the problem to a different location. That's all it is. So just think about what's been going on now, but just put it in a totally different location, and it's not going to change.
Okay.
That's
All
it.
right. It becomes Israel. It becomes Egypt's problem instead of Israel's problem.
And guess what? Egypt doesn't want that problem.
Yeah, that's obvious, or
You
they'd be
see,
trying
and
to open the border. In my
right.
opinion,
See,
allegedly.
right. Egypt doesn't want that headache, because what it just creates more economic problems for Egypt as well,
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
you're bringing over 2.2 million people into the Sinai desert, or that region. Now it's actually Egypt's, but now Egypt still has to control it, or they're going to split it with with um, the Palestinians. Now you have to keep in mind that maybe Egypt and the Palestinians really don't get along all like that. Okay,
Right.
but
Yeah.
maybe the only reason they're doing it is because they're Muslims. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And they're going to support the Muslims before, before they support
Over
the
the
Zion.
two. Yeah.
Right? You see,
Yeah.
but that doesn't necessarily mean that like we're like real close and I like you, and there might be some differences. You see, and
Yeah.
you have
And
to deal with those differences. You're gonna have to deal with those
speaking of,
differences.
yeah, the differences between being Jewish, between being Israeli, and between being Zionist, while we understand it, while we know it, um, it's not that defined in the rest of the world. People don't think that way. They just think if you're Jewish, you're going to be Zionist, you're going to be, and you're going to be a target. It's not like people can think to themselves even, well, that's not what I want as a Jewish person. I don't want this war. It doesn't matter, correct?
Yeah, right. Well, here's the thing: you have a lot of Jewish people here in the United States that are totally against Zionism, right? And
Hmm.
and they're actually backing the Palestinians and
They were
saying
in
that
they took over the rotunda of the US Capitol,
exactly right,
and
and they're
Marjorie Taylor Greene wanted them imprisoned as J6 terrorists kind of people.
yeah, but it's there. I think the Jewish people here in America kind of see the total intolerance and the genocide that's actually occurring, and they're saying, hey, look, no, that's completely wrong, and they're telling Netanyahu, hey, knock it off, you know you represent us too, and you're making us look bad.
And
So
there are demonstrations in Israel. We're not hearing about them. We're not seeing them, obviously, but there was a massive demonstration. That is what I'm hearing. Massive demonstration in Tel Aviv around the city hall
okay, now
today. Today.
and now this is something else I also heard, that the Israeli government is has actually started giving those police live ammo to use against their citizens in case things get out of control.
Okay, that's not really a surprise. Um, and anybody that's monitored what goes on, I mean, there are always dust ups, especially in Jerusalem, and especially around the Temple Mound, um, the Wailing Wall, that area where it's the border of like East Palestine. And there are always clashes there, and lots of supposedly non-lethal ammunition being used to try
Okay,
to quell protests. So it's not a surprise as things are going to escalate that they're going to escalate their deterrence.
yeah, well, the Temple Mount is good for violence. Um,
Yeah,
Muslims and the Zionists alike.
yeah,
That whole Alaska Mosque. Police used to run up in there all the time. You
right.
know,
Every Friday, it seemed like every Friday morning, as morning prayer was starting in Al Aqsa Mosque, the Israeli Defense Forces were coming in, saying that there were
right? And
terrorists being harbored there.
right. That's okay. You just don't want them there. Just say that. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah. And
that's
hey,
exactly what it is.
while we're on this subject, I'd really like at some point, maybe a couple of episodes down the road, where we just look, where we don't just look, but where our main focus is all of the religious places in these areas and the impact that that religion itself is playing in all this. Of course, we touch on it, but I want to just focus on it at some point a little more intensely because, again, I'm getting some emails from people like, isn't this just isn't this just a anti-terrorism? And on the surface, you might think it is anti-terrorism, what Israel is doing, but it goes a lot deeper than that. And I want to get into all of that. But tonight, our focus is on going to be, is this pronounced? I'm going to share it here. Is this pronounced Dur Yassin?
Yeah, it's pronounced Deir Yassin.
Dur Yassin.
And
Okay.
right now, this is a village, an Arab/Palestinian village west of Jerusalem, and this happened back 9 April, was that 1948? Okay, right before Israel became a state. Okay, so do you remember how I used to talk about how those Zionist terrorist organizations like the Irgun and the gang were good for committing atrocities? Well, this is one of these atrocities that most people will never hear about. And I mean, if everyone can Google it, all right, and this is just history, right? So, and the thing about this one is that prior to the massacre, the Haganah, which is like the Israeli military to a certain extent, but they're still kind of like paramilitaries, and that village had signed almost a peace agreement saying that they're saying that the Israelis or the Zionists would not attack the villages. And on that 9th of April 1948, the Zionist terrorist organizations like the Irgun and the Stern Gang actually attacked that village in the early morning hours. Okay. So allegedly, they said there were some resistance fighters there, but there were none. Okay. And but what the Irgun and the Stern Gang did was they actually massacred the village. There were approximately 700 people in that village, and they killed. Some reports are saying up to 250 people, and the majority of the people that were killed were women, children, okay, and the elderly. A lot of those people, according to reports, were dismembered, and a lot of those women were raped. Okay, and you had the others that were essentially displaced.
Right. They were taken prisoner and paraded through Jerusalem, actually. A lot of the men that weren't killed in the village were taken as prisoner and then eventually stoned to death or murdered.
Burned, or a lot of them were burned to death.
Or burned to death, yeah.
Yeah. So you talk about the brutality of these Zionist terror organizations, right? And you can Google a lot of this stuff because there's documentaries on this, and you can talk. And I think on one of the there's the commander of one of the commander of gangs that was there, and he talks about exactly what happened, and he doesn't have any compunction. There's like no feeling. Like he was kind of happy that
there's no guilt.
Right. There's no guilt. Right. Okay. So that's what happened in 1948. Right. Let's flip it to just what happened on October 7th, right? 2023. When Hamas had that attack in Israel.
Right.
Hamas killed. I know they allegedly killed over 1,000 Israelis and
Yeah.
others. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Kidnapped them, used them, brought them back as hostages. A lot of people were allegedly raped. Allegedly, babies' heads were cut off, and just just
Mean,
very,
nasty
very
stuff.
despicable thing. Right, right. And the thing about it is that they've condemned Hamas for exactly the same thing that the Irgun and the Stern Gang did in 1948.
Mm-hmm.
You see, and no one has said anything about these actions. No one's condemned the actions of the Stern Gang or
Most people probably aren't even aware of their existence from back then, or
right,
you know,
but the
or
Israeli government, right,
or how the
the,
Zionist movement came into Israel.
right, but see this whole that whole massacre
Mm-hmm.
was a way for Israel to become a state. You see, so they're saying that had to happen for Israel to become a state. So okay, all right. So even with that, where is your humanity? But there is none. You see, for what you did, you killed children, you raped the women, you killed the women, you burned the people, you stoned them. You see,
Mm-hmm.
but yet there's no condemnation for something that happened, for something that they did, but yet Hamas did pretty much the same thing, and you're ready to condemn Hamas for that terrorist attack. Okay, now
And
clearly,
I'm also reminded of something else you've said, um, that we are seeing Israel do the same thing to the Palestinians that Nazi Germany tried to do to the Jews.
they most certainly did. Okay, it's the same that the Nazis did to the Jews what the Jews are doing to the Palestinians today. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and no one is saying, oh, okay. But here's the thing: you would think after what they went through, after what the Jews went through, that they would be a little bit more understanding. It wouldn't do something like that because because it had already been done to them. You see,
Yeah, that's kind of what.
I'm looking at it from a humanist standpoint.
Right. Absolutely.
Okay? I'm not
Right.
looking at it from okay, I'm pro Israel or pro Palestinian. I'm looking at this from a straight humanist standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
that, that's that's
Most people look at this as the Jews have already gone through almost annihilation in World War II. They've gone, why not just leave them alone, let them have the land, and move the Palestinians somewhere else? That's the way most people, the average person, if they're even paying attention to this. I talked to a guy, um, that and I asked, he's an older gentleman, and I asked about, is this does this feel like it felt before World War II started? And he said, we weren't paying attention to anything that was going on. All of a sudden we got attacked by Japan and everybody just was pissed off and wanted to go to war. Is that where America is now? A lot of people aren't paying any attention. All of a sudden we're going to get attacked, a la a smaller version, not 9/11 big major attacks, but a series of attacks, maybe even coordinated so that we know it's from someone around the country. And all of a sudden it doesn't matter why, we're just pissed off and ready to go to war.
yeah.
Maybe that defines America.
Well, I'm paying attention to what's going on,
Obviously,
and
yeah.
uh, uh, I really don't know what the rest of the world, the world is thinking, but knowing how everyone is just you know, in their cell phones and, you know, not paying attention to what's going on. I mean, the whole world's crumbling around us and people still don't know what's going on, you know? So
Hmm.
let's say for instance, well, we'll just hypothetically, you know, what if there's some terrorist attacks that occur, right?
Okay.
And we talk about us, you know, coming together as one. Okay, yeah, I see it. But realistically, when it comes time to fight, and I'll go back to this once again, how weak we are as a society. Okay.
Okay.
I don't think that we're actually even prepared to fight that enemy over there, whether it be Iran, um, any of those extremist um, Islamic groups. Like I said, those are warriors. Here in the United States, we have weak men, weak women that aren't even close to even be mentally ready or prepared to go into that type of theater. You understand? You can train them, right? But you can't give these people the heart and the will to fight. You can't do that. But with them,
There's a difference between growing up in a rather prosperous nation and having things at our disposal and growing up in a country that's constantly war ravaged or on the threat of being war ravaged. You develop a different kind of toughness.
right? And the United States is kind of weak because they've obviously weakened our society. You see, um, and because of that, I go back to our military. Our military is weak too, so don't expect a whole lot when we start getting to these wars against other countries, because they've weakened our society, and our military is just a microcosm of that society. That's it. We're fat. We're a very fat society, overweight, obese, whatever you want to call it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, we're weak mentally.
I'm guilty. I ate 2 donuts last night. I shouldn't have.
Mentally, we're weak. A lot of people are on antidepressants or whatever here in our society. A lot of people are still using drugs. You see,
Mhm.
so we're weak. They've dumbed us down. So you can't expect us when it comes time to fight to actually be ready, because we're not hard enough to do that. Where on the other side, they're hard, and they have no fear, and they know that we're weak, okay, as a society and as a military, and that's why they kind of like laugh at us, you know. And
Mhm.
when President Biden says, "Yeah, uh, you're Iran, we don't want you to do this. You're not going to do this," I'm sure Iran's like, "Yeah, shut up, dude. Go sit down somewhere." You know,
Yeah. I
go.
reported that Biden and President Xi of China are gonna have a summit meeting in San Francisco, and, I'm sorry, but, I know he's our leader, and I want nothing but the best for him, but, um, there are times that I would really like to and it not be Trump, but like to have somebody up there that has a little bit more command in their presence, if you will. Because
Right.
I'm always wondering when Biden gets up there whether he's going to fall asleep in the middle of it or walk off the stage, forget where he's at or whatever. Because we've seen him do all those things. It's not an attack on the man; it's just reality.
Right. And if we see it, then everyone else sees it too, and they're like, "Yeah,
Absolutely, the rest of the world sees it.
right." And everyone else is like, all right, this is clown central, right? These dudes are straight clowns. We're gonna take advantage of this. You see, we're just gonna
That's my
exploit this,
concern.
and
They're
we're
going
gonna
to
show
take
them.
advantage of
We,
this. Yeah,
right?
we do.
We're
We show 'em
exploiting
weakness.
them. Yeah, yes. So that, and that, I think that's gonna be like of our downfalls. Okay, And could you imagine? Now I'm not going to badmouth our vice president, but a lot of those Muslim Arabic countries are patriarchal in nature, you know.
Very
And
much so.
say for instance something happens, right? Say for instance something were to happen to President Biden and Vice President Harris gets pushed in that forefront as to be president. They're just going to run roughshod all over. They're going to clown her. They're going to be like, no one's going to pay attention. Go ahead and attack. She doesn't know anything, and that's what's most likely going to happen. So,
At the very least, they're going to test her,
right? And you know, I really hope that she has the gumption, to actually, drop the hammer when it needs to be dropped. Because if not, here we go, and they're just going to be like, "Here, just go ahead."
Okay,
Go ahead,
I will say this: I spent some time in the Democratic Party hierarchy, and the women in at that level are pretty extreme, and I wouldn't doubt her dropping the hammer.
Oh, really?
And maybe even relishing dropping the hammer.
Okay, well, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, just because of the fact that she would be female, she would have the opportunity for equality, if you will, of showing what a badass she actually is.
Right.
And it wasn't dark Brandon the whole time or whatever it is the memes they do with Joe Biden, which I think are hilarious. They show him in the aviator sunglasses with his arms all tattooed and like he's I don't know. Anyway, back to what we were talking about.
So go ahead, Bear.
Go ahead. The only other thing I had was Dmitry Medvedev. I wanted to talk about him briefly here at the end tonight. I think he's probably number 2 behind Putin if something were to happen to Putin. And just so know in case, something happens to Putin overnight, because we're talking about Putin and Biden are both older guys. Okay. And I say that as an older guy. I call these guys older guys from where I'm at. So something could happen naturally at any time. Something could happen nefariously at any time. The number 2 over there would probably be Dmitry Medvedev. And he is the deputy of their National Security Council.
Okay.
And he is the former president of Russia that signed the START treaty when Obama was president, and we were going to reduce nuclear arms, and it was going to be all peace and kumbaya. He was the guy that was president then, after Putin, and then before Putin's second time, Putin coming in, and it's been Putin ever since then. So he was looked at as possibly someone the West could deal with. Over the past 5 years, 4 years, since probably, late 2018 through 2023, where we are now, he's become incredibly authoritarian, incredibly hardline, basically trying to position himself as a mini Putin, that if something happens to Putin, he steps in and carries on with what Putin's trying to do. And Putin, the first quote when I Googled, the first quote that came up was, Putin says, it's quite simply, I trust him.
Well, there's your answer right there. If you trust the guy, then
that's why I'm deeming him number 2. A lot of people aren't, and a lot of people are saying the guy that's above him in the Security Council would be the next president appointed if something were happening to Putin. But I don't think so. I think that guy stays on the Security Council, and this Medvedev is the next guy up.
Yeah. Well, we'll wait and see because
Yeah.
what's said,
Hopefully we see soon.
because what's said out in public, you know, people can say all they want out in public, but what counts behind closed doors.
Yeah.
Right?
And this isn't the first time Putin's had some health concerns.
Oh no.
Since since they invaded Ukraine.
Right. So I think we talked about him allegedly having cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And then the most recent thing of him allegedly having a heart attack.
Mm-hmm.
So he obviously has some very serious health concerns. And
one other thing I want to toss out, Chris, that I didn't get into the headlines. I thought I had it up. I just realized I did. Poland today basically said no more aid to Ukraine.
And okay, and we kind of discussed that the last time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And right now, remember I told you about what the United States is most likely going to do if this thing goes to Taiwan as well.
Yeah,
I said we got to cut out.
We'll have 3 fronts, and we can only handle 2.
Right. So right now we have 2 fronts, and so you know they're going to split the monies, but we don't know how that money is going to get split. Is it going to be 50-50? Is it going to be 60-40, 70-30, whatever, you know? But whatever it is, someone's going to be pissed off. And I'm pretty sure the majority of that money is going to be going to Israel. And
I agree.
Yeah, and Zelensky's going to be, you know, get the short end of the stick, and he's going to be pissed off. But knowing that, I think the rest of NATO is going to be like, hey, man, you know, you're on your own. There's only so much we can do, you know. It's all on you now. You know, they had so, I mean, they got over I forgot almost $100 billion. You know, you see,
Yeah,
and the real reason he's pissed off is because he's not be getting that money anymore.
right.
That's the real reason, right?
Yeah.
So,
Hey, again, let's do an episode sometime where we talk about the religious and spiritual and locations and ramifications of all of this.
definitely.
And I'd like to toss this out in advance. The Antichrist. If the Bible is correct and there is an Antichrist, who could that possibly be? And are they here now? Just, you know, and they just aren't aware that they are the Antichrist. So I want to toss that out to the audience as well and get some audience feedback on and give it some thought. I don't want it right now, but give it some thought for when we do that episode. Who you might think the Antichrist might be and why. And when you brought Zelensky up, the first thing that went through my head when I heard he was the president of Russia or president of Ukraine was, this guy came out of nowhere. Russia was, or Ukraine was, you know, he comes from the line that was potentially part of, you know, the geographical area, we'll say, where the Antichrist could possibly come from. A lot of things went through my head about that dude.
I never thought about him. I never thought about him specifically.
And I, you know, I'm not, it's no hate or anything. I'm just being real. That's what happened the first, you know, when I first heard because he was a comedian. He was totally, you know, just like he shouldn't be in the position where he's at. And it's almost that's one of the big check marks.
Yeah, well, you know, the president of Venezuela was a bus driver, Maduro.
Mm-hmm.
He was a bus driver, and now he's president of the country. So there you go. Right?
Yeah, I'm not saying it's Zelensky. I'm just saying that was the first thing that popped through my head. I doubt if it is him.
Right.
I think it's probably somebody that's going to come out of either either the Middle East or Eastern Europe, but primarily, I think it's going to be somebody that comes out of the Middle East. But
it's definitely someone that's come out of the Middle East. I promise you that.
That's what you think too?
Oh yeah, all day.
Okay. All right. We'll talk about it in an upcoming episode. All right. As of now, everything go for Wednesday.
We're good to go.
Okay, man. You have a great rest of your evening, and
You too.
And we'll see you Wednesday. As always, thank you, brother.
All right,
Great show. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, you take care.
All right, that's Chris. And again, thank you all for being here. We're going to close out this portion of the show. For for those that are watching on, not watching live on demand, we'll close it out. For everybody else, stick around for a minute and a half, and we'll take some questions and comments from chat. All right. Again, thank you all for clicking on. Thank those of you for sticking around, hanging out. Let me pop over here to the chat. Say hello to Max Flower 13. Not going away. I'm going from the bottom up here. Lori Arnold, Michelle. Let's see who else is in here. Hoodpecker, how are you? Lauren B, thank you for joining. There's True. Good to see you, my man. And Pat Tolliver, hello. Hello, D. Canada says they have ground troops. They have troops on the ground. Yes, Canada has said they have troops on the ground. Hello to Guy Bassett. And Cunning Stunt. Hi, Cunning. As always, always be kind. That's a great name and a great mantra to live by. Not going away. The rock of the place, the foundation of the place, if you will. So thank you all for being here. Yeah, I haven't seen Max in a while. It's good to see Max Flower in here. And Max Flower has a question for Lori. Lori, you aren't still supporting Trump, are you? And I don't know. I don't have top chat on, so I don't know if I'm missing a response. I'm not watching this stuff anymore since Labor Day, D. Just happened to see the notification. Thanks, Max Flower. Thanks for popping in here. I understand a lot of people are going to be tuning out because things are going to get intense. And the more intense it gets in the real world, the more important distractions can be to remind ourselves that, don't get caught up in all the darkness, be a light. And that means having some fun. And we're going to try to do that tomorrow. I haven't pitched the idea yet, but I got a couple of things in mind potentially for Halloween. And I might even do something later on tonight because there's a really cool display close by. So I might pop back on here live again late night when it's dark and it's officially Halloween, sometime maybe after midnight. Show a really cool display over here. And if I don't, you can catch that on Lori Arnold's channel, by the way. I've got a daytime version of it. I haven't got the nighttime version yet, and I'll either do that tonight or tomorrow. Most hats are just cutthroat anyway. Pretty silly. Max Flower is an incredibly intelligent person. Actually, She's been integral in me finding a place called Behind the Mirror, and then she helped me get to a place where I could get information on a non-biased basis and that wasn't always the case, but when I needed it the most, right at the beginning of starting to cover this 1776 movement that was going to try to go into Washington, D.C. and finish what had been started. If you're not aware of all of that, then you're best off just to forget it. I even mentioned it. Yes, it is live. XRX Raptor, it is live. Michelle, did you hear? Michelle says, did you hear Owen Schoner, Alex Jones' co-host, was jailed for 2 months for contempt of court order of trespassing on Capitol grounds? No, I did not. I don't have an opinion on it because I'm just now learning of it, Michelle. So I'd like to at least know the situation, the backgrounds. Hello, Raptor. Welcome from Germany. We do thank you. Yes, Max, you're exactly right. I was about to say that, and she warned me that very same night not to get involved. Absolutely. Thank you for that clarification. And it's things. It's amazing how things from that little community branched out, if you will, spiraled or whatever. Raptor, the channel is neutral. The channel is a humanitarian channel that is pro-life for everybody. We try to show both sides of things, the atrocities that happened and the strategies. Our primary focus. We're not a blood and guts channel. We show very little of that, actually. We're more on the strategies and on the impacts of how things play out, how things could possibly impact different parts of the world, the way things are going. That's kind of the focus of the channel at the moment, as far as our Monday, Wednesday, and Friday nights at 9 p.m. when we do the WSR. That's the World Situation Report. We just do a report on what we see going on around the world. So hope you spread the news and let some people in Germany know, or more people in Germany know that we are doing this, and we do it every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And with that being said, I'm coming up on being on for an hour and 20 minutes. That's a question, Raptor, and who did more human rights violations? My stance, as I've said before, and this is a great way to end this, my position is everything that is happening in the Middle East is just reciprocity for something that has already happened. And it's just been an escalation of atrocity upon atrocity upon atrocity committed by both sides over an extended period of time. The focus at the moment is what is Israel's response to what Hamas did October 7th. That's where we're at currently. But in order to find out how we got to where we're at currently, we explore some of the other things, like we did tonight with Deir Yasser. And hang on just a second. I got a telephone call here that I need to call right back. Hang on. Hey, dude, I'm live. Let me call you right back. That was from our friend Telescope, for those that know Telly. Yeah, my opinion is this. there are not going to be, when you're objective about it, there are not going to be anything but a lot of bad guys in all of this. There are going to be bad things. There have been bad things done throughout a long history. There are going to continue to be bad things done. There were bad things done by Hamas on October 7th. There are really bad things being done right now by Israel. And while some people think some of the things might be staged as far as the imagery coming out of Palestine, the destruction of a portion of Palestine is very, very much real. You can find a few places on the internet where you can get the imagery of what's really going on there. Not a lot of imagery coming out because there is basically a communications blackout in Gaza as far as internet goes, as far as electricity goes. And the place is pretty much under siege. And when you do that, the purpose is to starve out, to wear down, to put people in position for unconditional surrender. And that's what's going on at the moment in southern Gaza, as well as an incursion and a ground invasion and potential occupation of northern Gaza. And according to Israel, the entire Gaza Strip eventually is the goal. They have to do that, in their words, to get rid of Hamas. And that is the stated objection or stated objective. So that's kind of my wrap. And I guess the chat goes on even after I shut the channel down. So hang in the chat for a few more minutes, if you will. I'm going to get off of here and get a drink and watch the rest of Monday Night Football and maybe plan some things for tomorrow for Halloween, to have a little bit of fun, because this is a pretty serious episode tonight. Pretty serious episode I had last night. If you didn't see it, go check it out. Chris and I were on last Friday, and we'll be on Wednesday night at 9. Again, I'll try to have some fun tomorrow if we can do so, as long as there aren't any major catastrophic things happening around the world. If that does happen, I'll be back on here, but not for Halloween fun. Hopefully it's to have a good time and laugh a little bit, because we need laugh. The darker the times get, the more important it is to try to stay positive. And as I often say, it is a dark world. So I hope all of us try to be a little bit of a light, even if it's just to somebody right next to us. It's the most important to brighten up the people that are closest to you. With that being said, namaste, shalom, assalamu alaikum. Blessings from the Most High, the one true living God, his son Christ Jesus. If you are a Christian and if you wish those blessings, please accept them. If not, I love you all. I love you all like chocolate chip cookies. And put out positive vibrations for peace, for some love. And we'll see you Wednesday night, if not before. Probably see me sometime tomorrow on Halloween. Until then.